Picture this: San Diego, 1921, Balboa Park. 30,000 people, more people than have ever gathered for a religious meeting in California history, stand shoulder to shoulder under the blazing sun. In the center, a woman in a white dress stands on a wooden platform. She's 30 years old, a widow, a single mother, and she's terrified. An elderly woman is carried forward on a stretcher, paralyzed from the waist down since childhood, never walked a single day in her life. The woman on the platform knows that if nothing happens, if God doesn't show up, they will run her out of town. Her ministry will be over. Everything she sacrificed will be for nothing. She places her hands on the woman. Her voice rings out across 30,000 people. "In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, rise up and walk." Nothing, still nothing. Then the woman's legs move. She stands. She takes one step, then another. She's walking for the first time in her life. The crowd erupts. People are weeping, shouting, fainting. Wheelchairs and crutches are left abandoned in the grass. Years later, a minister named Dan Hagen would make a stunning statement. If you took all the healing evangelists of the 1940s and 50s, Oral Roberts, William Branham, every single one, and combined their miracles, they wouldn't total half of what Sister Aimee had alone. This is Aimee Semple McPherson. But how did a teenage widow from a Canadian farm become the most famous woman preacher in American history? How did she build a 5,300-seat temple, launch the first Christian radio station, feed 1.5 million people during the Great Depression, and change the face of Christianity forever? And what price did she pay for it? This is her story. Every triumph, every tragedy, including a scandal that nearly cost her ministry, every impossible choice. Sister Aimee, the woman who paid the price. Ontario, Canada, 1907. 17-year-old Aimee Kennedy sits by her bedroom window, staring into the darkness. She's wrestling with a question that's tearing her apart. At school, her teachers tell her Darwin is right. Humans evolved from animals. At church, they tell her God created everything in 6 days. Both can't be true. She asks her pastor, "If Genesis isn't literally true, why should I believe the rest of the Bible?" He has no answer. Listen to what she prayed that night. "God, if there is a God, reveal yourself to me." Have you ever felt that desperate? That honest? That's where real faith begins. Not in certainty, but in hunger. 1 week later, Aimee walks into a Pentecostal revival meeting led by a young Irish preacher named Robert Semple. And everything changes. She's never seen anything like this. People are falling down under the power of God. Others are speaking in languages they've never learned. This isn't dead religion. This is alive. Robert Semple is 6'2", dark-haired, with eyes that seem to see right through her. He preaches about a God who still does miracles, who still speaks, who still moves with power. That night, Aimee surrenders her life to Jesus Christ. She's baptized in the Holy Spirit. She speaks in tongues. But more than that, she falls desperately in love with Robert Semple. When Robert proposes marriage, he says something that changes everything. "Before you answer, let's kneel and pray. Let's ask God if this is His will." They kneel together. Aimee closes her eyes tight. And suddenly, she sees a vision. In the vision, she and Robert are walking together up a long road. She realizes, this is God saying yes. They're meant to walk through life together, but then she closes her eyes again to keep praying. And she sees a second vision. This time, she's walking up the road alone. Robert is gone. She doesn't understand. But she says yes anyway, to God and to Robert. God was preparing her. He knew what was coming. And He was showing her that even when she walked alone, she would still be walking His path. Within months, they're married. She's 18. He's her Bible teacher, her mentor, her first great love. Together, they dream of taking the gospel to the ends of the earth. 1910. Aimee and Robert board a steamer bound for China as missionaries. They're young, idealistic, on fire for God. They believe nothing can stop them, but China is brutal. The heat is suffocating. The food makes them sick. The culture is overwhelming. 1 month after they arrive, Robert contracts malaria and dysentery. Within days, he's dead. Aimee is 19 years old, 8 months pregnant, penniless, alone in a foreign country. The love of her life is gone. And suddenly, that second vision makes sense. She is walking the road alone. This is the crucible. This is where most people quit. Where most people say, "God, you took everything from me. I'm done." But listen to what Aimee said years later. "If my husband gave his life for this gospel, then I will too." She gives birth to her daughter Roberta and somehow makes it back to America. Broken, grieving, but not finished. Type "I will not quit" in the comments if you're facing your crucible right now. Back in America, Aimee tries to build a normal life. She marries Harold McPherson, a stable accountant. She has a second child, a son named Rolf. She has a nice house, a white picket fence, security. But she's dying inside. She later wrote, "Such a fever of restlessness came upon me that it seemed I must wear the polish off the furniture. She becomes so depressed she ends up in the hospital critically ill. Multiple surgeries, nervous breakdown. The doctors don't know if she'll survive. And in that hospital bed, in the darkness, she hears a voice. 'Now will you go?' Not if you go, not when you're ready. Now. Will you go now?" It's the middle of the night. Aimee gets out of her hospital bed, healed. She goes home, packs her bags, grabs her 2 children, and walks out. She leaves her husband, leaves the house, leaves security, leaves everything. She sends him a telegram. "I have tried to walk your way and I have failed. Won't you come now and walk mine?" Do you understand what this cost her? In 1915, women couldn't even vote yet. Divorce was scandalous. A woman preacher was almost unheard of. She had 2 small children, no money, no church backing, no plan. Just a call from God. What is God asking you to leave behind? What comfort? What security? What normal life is keeping you from your calling? Aimee buys an old Packard convertible and paints it with signs. "Jesus is coming. Get ready." She puts her mother Minnie in the passenger seat, her 2 kids in the back, and drives across America. When the car gets stuck in mud, she wraps clothes around the tires for traction. They sleep in tents by the side of the road, eat cold canned corn and crackers, wear hand-me-down clothes. Her son Ralph remembered, "We lived in the midst of storms with lightning flashing and the tents leaking, but Mother never quit." One day, they're driving across the country when, bang, a flat tire. They pull over, middle of nowhere, dirt roads, no cell phones, no houses nearby, and no spare tire. Night is coming fast. Aimee has 2 small children, miles from anywhere. Her son Rolf watched what happened next. Aimee gets out, walks around the car twice. Then she turns to her children. "Get out of the car. We're going to pray for the tire." Let that sink in. She didn't pray for help to arrive. She didn't pray for someone to find them. She prayed for the tire. Aimee, Roberta, and Rolf laid their hands on that flat tire and asked God to heal it. And Rolf swears he felt it re-inflate under his hands. They got back in the car and drove across the country, finishing their trip that day. That's Aimee's faith. Not your traditional pray and wait, but radical, audacious, "God, if you can heal bodies, you can heal tires" faith. What impossible thing do you need to lay hands on today? Philadelphia, summer of 1918. Aimee is leading a revival with thousands of followers, but not everyone is happy. One night, a gang of local thugs shows up. They have clubs, containers of gasoline. They've come to burn down the tent and beat anyone who gets in their way. Aimee sees them coming. She could panic. She could run. She could call the police. Instead, she does something nobody expects. She sends word through the crowd. I want everyone to kneel down and pray, right now. Thousands of people drop to their knees, and suddenly, the gang members are the only ones standing. They're raised up above everyone else, exposed, visible, like they're caught naked. They're completely disarmed. Not by force, not by violence, but by prayer. They turn around and leave. When hell comes against you with clubs and gasoline, do you panic? Or do you pray? Aimee knew the weapons of our warfare are not carnal. She knew the power of God is stronger than any gang, any mob, any threat. San Diego, 1921. This is where everything explodes. 30,000 people show up. The largest religious gathering in California history. They overflow the building, spill into the park, crowd the streets, and the miracles start. The paralyzed walk. The blind see. Tumors disappear. Crutches and wheelchairs are left in piles. The newspapers go crazy. Some call her a miracle woman. Others call her a hypnotist, a charlatan, a fraud. But Aimee says something that shows her heart. There is no job in the world so thankless as praying for the afflicted. But I have been forced into this by public demand. Her friends said she would come off the platform completely drenched in sweat. They'd have to pour water out of her shoes. Can you imagine? Laying hands on 30,000 sick people one by one until you have nothing left? That's the price of power. Aimee stands on an empty lot in Los Angeles. She has $5,000. The architect tells her, "That'll dig the hole." She says, "Then dig the hole. God will fill it up." She travels the country again, selling little cement bags for $1 each. Every dollar goes straight to construction. Within 2 years, on January 1st, 1923, Angelus Temple opens its doors. 5,300 seats. The largest unsupported dome in North America. Not just a church, a Bible college, a radio station, a commissary for the poor. And it's paid for. No debt. Zero. 3 services every Sunday. But here's what nobody tells you. Aimee preaches 21 services a week. By herself. 21 times a week she climbs that platform. 21 times she pours out her heart. 21 times she gives everything she has. Morning, noon, night. Day after day. Week after week. Eventually she has to bring in other pastors to help. Because no human being can sustain that pace. But that's what it took to launch Angelus Temple. That's the price she paid. When people said it was impossible, Aimee built it anyway. But she built it with her own blood, sweat, and tears. 21 services a week. What are you willing to sacrifice to build what God called you to build? But here's where Aimee does something revolutionary, something controversial, something brilliant. She realizes she's competing with Hollywood for people's attention. So she brings Hollywood to the church. Sunday nights at Angelus Temple become the greatest show in Los Angeles. Live camels for Bible stories, actors in full costume, Aimee descending from the ceiling dressed as an angel, Aimee riding a motorcycle dressed as a police officer, arresting sinners. And then she does it again. She builds KFSG, the first Christian radio station in America, the 3rd station in all of Los Angeles. Her voice reaches millions. Shut-ins hear the gospel. Skeptics tune in. Lives are changed across the nation. But the heart of Aimee's ministry is healing. She designates specific days. Ambulance Day. Stretcher Day. When Aimee announces on the radio that Saturday is Ambulance Day, something incredible happens. Sick people across Los Angeles, Orange County, the entire region, they start booking up every ambulance, every single one. Hospitals have to reserve ambulances for real emergencies because everyone else is heading to Angelus Temple. Aimee stands at the back door of the temple for hours, getting in and out of ambulances, one after another, praying for the sick. Her philosophy: she won't take her hands off you until she feels the anointing of God leave her hands. Once it flows out, her job is done. The rest is between you and God. The success rate is phenomenal. Not everyone is healed, but thousands are. Newspapers document the miracles. Doctors verify the healings. This isn't a show. This isn't hype. This is a woman so surrendered to God that His power flows through her like electricity. What would happen if you prayed for the sick with that kind of faith? People would ask her, "Sister Aimee, why does your church thrive? Why do miracles happen here? What's your secret?" And she would give the simplest, most profound answer, "I preach the great I am, not the great I was." Let that land. Most preachers were telling people about what God did. In the Bible, 2,000 years ago, past tense, history, Aimee preached about what God is doing. Right now, today, present tense, alive. The same Jesus who healed the blind man at the pool, He's here, tonight, to heal you. The same Jesus who fed 5,000, He's here, to meet your need. The same Jesus who raised Lazarus, He's here, with resurrection power for your dead situation. Not I was, I am, not He did, He does. What God are you preaching? The God of history or the God of right now? May 18th, 1926. Aimee goes to Venice Beach with her secretary to prepare a sermon. She goes for a swim, and she vanishes. Massive search, divers, Coast Guard, thousands on the beach. 2 men die trying to find her body. The nation is gripped. Is she dead? Did she drown? A week later, her mother holds a memorial service. 30,000 people weep. The newspapers declare America's most famous preacher is gone. But then, 32 days later, Aimee stumbles out of the Mexican desert into Douglas, Arizona. She's alive. She says she was kidnapped. A couple approached her on the beach asking her to pray for their sick baby. They shoved her into a car, drugged her, held her in a shack in Mexico. She escaped by cutting her bonds on a tin can and walking across the desert. The press explodes. The district attorney investigates. Witnesses come forward saying they saw Aimee in Carmel, California with Kenneth Ormiston, her former radio engineer, a married man. Rumors swirl. Was it a kidnapping, an affair, a publicity stunt? The DA charges her with perjury, conspiracy, fabricating evidence. Here's the truth. We don't know what happened. There's no proof of kidnapping, but there's no proof of an affair either. The evidence is contradictory. The witnesses unreliable. What we do know is this. Aimee was exhausted, lonely, under crushing pressure. 21 services a week for years. Praying for thousands of sick people, building an empire while her personal life crumbled. She later said, "People go home arm in arm while I sit watching the last light go out in the auditorium, alone." Maybe she made a terrible mistake. Maybe she was truly kidnapped. Maybe the truth is somewhere in between. But here's what matters. The charges were dropped. And Aimee's church didn't abandon her. If anything, it grew stronger. Because her people knew something the newspapers didn't. They knew her heart. They knew her sacrifice. They knew she was human, flawed, broken, struggling, but still pursuing God with everything she had. The stock market crashes. America plunges into the Great Depression. Millions are starving, homeless, desperate. And Aimee rises from her scandal to do something beautiful. She opens the Angelus Temple Commissary. No questions asked, no red tape, just food and clothes for anyone who needs it. 1.5 million people are fed during the Depression. That's more than the city government, more than any other organization. Black, white, Mexican, Asian, it doesn't matter. If you're hungry, Aimee feeds you. The mayor honors her. The police and fire chiefs honor her. After all the scandal, she proves what matters most. Her faith produces love in action. This is redemption. Not pretending you didn't fall, but getting up and loving people harder than ever. But Aimee's personal life continues to crumble. She feuds with her mother, with her daughter. A third marriage fails publicly and painfully. The newspapers mock her. Critics say she's washed up, a relic of the gaudy 1920s. But she never stops preaching. The temple stays full. The Foursquare denomination grows. Hundreds of churches planted across America. She trains thousands of ministers at LIFE Bible College. She sells more war bonds than any Hollywood star during World War II. Flawed? Yes. Broken? Absolutely. But finished? Never. Oakland, California. September 1944. Aimee preaches one final time on the second coming of Jesus Christ. After the service, she tells her son, "I've never been happier. Being back on the evangelistic field, that's where I most long to be." That night, she returns to her hotel room. The next morning, her son finds her unconscious. Overdose of sleeping pills. Accidental. At 53 years old, Aimee Semple McPherson is gone. Tens of thousands attend her funeral. They line up for blocks. Newspaper boys shout, "Aimee does it again." People weep in the streets. One woman said, "This is the lady who led me to the Lord." Today, the Foursquare Church has over 8 million members in 150 countries. Thousands of churches. All because one woman said yes when the world said no. Every woman preacher today owes Aimee a debt. Every megachurch learned from her innovations. Every Christian radio and TV ministry stands on her shoulders. Every church that feeds the poor echoes her compassion. Remember what Dan Hagin said, "If you took all the healing evangelists of the 1940s and 50s and combined their miracles, they wouldn't total half of what Sister Aimee had alone." Was she perfect? No. Did she make mistakes? Absolutely. Did she struggle with loneliness, scandal, and personal failure? Yes. But did she quit? Never. Listen to me. Aimee's story is not about being perfect. It's about being faithful. It's about saying yes to God when it costs you everything. When it costs you comfort. When it costs you reputation. When it costs you family. When it costs you security. She paid the price. 21 services a week. Ambulances lined up for blocks. Praying over flat tires in the middle of nowhere. Standing against gangs with nothing but prayer, walking through scandal with her head held high. And because she did, millions found Jesus, millions were healed, millions were fed, millions heard the gospel. So here's my question for you. What is God calling you to do that seems impossible? What price are you afraid to pay? What comfort are you unwilling to leave? Aimee was a farm girl from Canada, widowed at 19. No money, no support. Just a call. If God could use her, He can use you. But you have to be willing to pay the price. And you have to preach the great I am, not the great I was. I preach the great I am, not the great I was. I have one passion. It is He, only He. Aimee Semple McPherson.